How is it going, ladies and gentlemen? It is your host, Zimzilla, back again. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful Monday, and we're getting closer to Christmas. So, if you are feeling the pain of finals as Minecraft is, hopefully your time here listening will be a wonderful de-stressing one, as I am the one who gets to be stressed out because of bad videos. But the interesting thing about this bad video is that there is a response because, unfortunately, Zimcast no longer corners the market when it comes to Godzilla response content. OmniViewer, Nathan, Elijah, all those guys, they all, unfortunately, they ended up, well, unfortunately for me, but fortunately just for good discourse in general, they saw this video before I did. Well, not actually, that's not even true either. I saw it, I was gonna respond to it, and then out of the blue, OmniViewer and those guys with the steel chair, they came in and did a live stream response before I could do my live stream response. So that was fun. I just came in for a tiny bit because I was still at work at the time when they posted that. So unfortunately, I wasn't really able to listen in. And honestly, I didn't want to listen in, not because I don't like their content. I love those guys, but I feel that had I listened in, I think some of their own thoughts and the conclusions that they came to would have filtered into my own response. And I just feel that if people coming in for like my thoughts, my feelings, I don't want them to necessarily be um not tainted, that wouldn't be the right word, but at least influenced by someone else's content on the exact same topic. So there is that. I won't be in this live stream. It was a very stressful day for me. Yeah, no, don't worry. This is a solo stream, as these ones tend to be, but there will be some streams that will be for everyone coming down the pipeline. I just haven't set them up yet. But it's nice to see everyone in here. And Test Inspector, how's it going? What do you think? The age of jolly has come. Jolly up. Coloring your Biolante design. That's good to see. And hello to you, Karu. O5 is in as well. Like I already saw Minecraft. And Convoy is here as well. Update, he made another video that's a follow-up. So yes, I will be doing both the original video and the follow-up as well, because I don't personally feel like the follow-up really addressed my concerns with his video and just Accented Cinema's content as a whole. And I'm not sure, and at least I know Sea Monster, I think of 5 and Minecraft were all in the stream for OmniViewer. So I'm not like, correct me if I'm wrong when I get to the follow-up, but I think there is one thing that I've noticed about Accented Cinema's content that I just feel wouldn't be addressed otherwise, because I don't think it's necessarily relevant to the videos, but it's just something I have noticed, and I think that comes to light when we're looking at his response to everything. Kasaibu was there as well. I didn't see Kasaibu in chat, but if he is at least watching, he's one of the viewers already who is here, then yeah, like if he wants to post something, definitely post it. But enough with that. We'll get to the video eventually. Eventually. I do want to at least do a little bit of showcasing some art. So we'll get into some art postings. And I hope you all like the new cover here. I had my editor, Black, the Blackest Black. He ended up doing this little tidbit here for the Methuselah video. And, you know, it's art-based, not art-based, geez. It is Arctic-based because it's from Godzilla Domination. It's a cover for that song. So at least it's appropriate for the Christmas time. I've seen people say it was pro-Imperial and pro-Kamikaze in Twitter 1, but yes, that was from a while ago. I will definitely inject that as a little tidbit for the stream when it does end. But yes, Blackaroonie is indeed my editor for some of my videos. Some of them I do myself. I give a few of them to Gojin, but it's a mix of people. But let's get into showcasing a lot of the people's arts. So first we have Intestine Inspector's piece right here. This was more of his Space Godzilla, so we only really got to see the top half. And now we're seeing a little bit more of the bottom here. I remember in chat, in the Discord, which for anyone who is interested in joining the Discord, there's a link in the description as always. But these little openings here, kind of the idea he wanted to go for was like a DNA sequence. I think what you could do is if you add details here like muscles or tendons, similar to what classic Space Godzilla has on his abdomen, those kinds of details, and have them interlock like this, that will make the idea of the interlocking DNA idea work even better, because that's another bit of visual flair that adds to it. Because I think had you not told me, I would have assumed that there was another reason for this, like a spacey kind of explanation, but I do like that DNA angle there too. And then of course we got the little prong tip for the back there. I still love the black hole here. The spines are an interesting beat. They remind me a little bit of Zogre spines. I think that's definitely not intentional, but I like it regardless. And I don't know if this was intentional either, but how you did the eyes, they almost kind of look like exploding stars in a way, or like just shooting, like not shooting stars, just like stars in the sky, where when the sky's all like black and when you see the stars, they just have that sort of diamond shape to them. So I'm not sure if you did that intentionally or not, but that's a really nice detail. And then right here, oh, was it intentional? Because if that was the case, then you did a really good job with that. And then we've got a Gigan design, which my immediate thought of this right here, since usually Gigan has a beak, looking at it right here, the shape language to me says duck. But when I was like looking at it first, my thought was kind of like Metal Gear Ray-esque, because Ray has that similar kind of smaller portion to the top of his head, and then the mouth opens up right there. Although this would be Gigan's visor, but overall, this just the vibe just screamed Metal Gear Ray for me, please. And then you've got these bits here for Gigan's back, which are a little different from the fins, but I think it adds to the overall jaggedness of the design. And you've got the hooks here, the uptick here of the legs. They remind me a bit of like some Ultraman kaiju, also kind of a bit of Volga, although Volga's designer did do a lot of Ultraman monsters, so in a way it kind of comes full circle if I'm thinking it reminds me of Volga. And of course you can't do a Gigan without the Gigan buzzsaw belly. And now these kind of remind me of like razor blades, like the ones that you kind of get in a, like, yeah, just like a shaving razor. But with Gigan, you always can't go wrong with more blades, so I think this is a good detail to keep. And now you come to this, like a Morningstar tail. Now originally I think it was, there's art of Gigan with the Morningstar on his arm rather than on the tail. So I think this is an interesting detail to include, is have it be on the tail instead of the arm. So it's a good detail. I'm assuming as well these little bits here are going to be like blades as well. So I think if anything, you could do something similar to how the Doomslayer shield works and have that kind of sit flat on his tail. Or it could just be like a traditional kind of Morningstar flail type of design. More like Olga. That's the thing, is that, speaking of, because I mentioned this in the other stream, which we'll get to that before we start the new stream. With Volga or Volga, I prefer it when it's V, and it's interesting that both Variant and Volga have, when they're translated over, their names start with a B rather than a V, but that's neither here nor there for me. I remember the flail was based off of Godzilla 54's custom flail attachment for the SH Monsters Gigan. Oh, there you go. Taking inspiration from some of the best. I love his custom figures, like the new stuff he's been working on. It is really nice what he's been accomplishing. He's improved a lot since I first came across him. And now we come to Vic's Pocho, the Ferocious Protector. And I'm not sure if this was a poster or kind of like a book cover for one of his stories, but Vic's continued to improve on his art as always. And I want to say it, but I won't say it. I think you all know what I'm thinking, but no. We cannot descend too much just yet. But Vic's doing an awesome job as always. I think, at least with this, I think if he made the mountain just a tad darker in color, I think closer to the trees here, I think it would have broken up the mountain a little bit better, because it's essentially the same color here as the grass. So I don't feel like it defines itself as well, but that's just me. And now we come to 05's King Ghidorah design. Of course, like, not the most detailed, but what I will make note of is I like the multiple eyes, the beards here. I assume it's kind of like the fuzzy crown a bit for Ghidorah. But this little piece here of this one massive crest on the back of his head is a detail. It'd be interesting to see a more detailed design that takes this trait here. But like I like what you did with the heads, like, conceptually. Like, continue to work on your art, man. Keep improving. And I'd love to see you take like another shot at these designs. Like, maybe you do use some of this as inspiration for Silent War King Ghidorah. And I say that considering how long it took me to do my original King Ghidorah design. And I'm like, God, now it's time to take another swing at a King Ghidorah. So that's daunting for me. Now this is, both these are potatoes. Potato had this piece right here, and he's improved immensely as well. Like, this is a fun little shot. And I also love the fact that, like, the file actually has like a name for it. It just says Broken Night Satellite Stars. And considering the fact that the Earth's like above the monster here, it's almost uncanny. And I wish I could rotate this, but I can't. Like, in a way, it's almost like you think of space as the sky and like the ocean as like just Earth as the bottom, and sort of inverting it so it's at like this kind of angle right here. It's trippy, and I love it. And now we come to his last piece right here, which is this horror bit right here. And I don't think this is kaiju based at all, but the art's still good. Like, honestly, if you were in the Discord or if you're viewing right now and you're not a big kaiju person, even though like I try to keep all my content kaiju based instead of like branching out, because I don't really want to do like variety stuff. I think that if you have art, even if it's not kaiju related, but you want to post it to stream, just do it, man. I love this. Just a little bit of light shining on it, and you can just make out what this is. It's really good. You know, he's been, yeah, you're right, Minecraft. Like, he's been improving a lot. When will the dinosaur pitch occur? I'm thinking the dinosaur pitch might occur probably the 22nd. That's when I'm probably thinking about doing it. There's still some art I need to post and get finished in preparation for the dinosaur stream. But yeah, I think the 22nd is what I'll do. And then depending on extenuating circumstances around Christmas, we may do a stream or not. We'll see. But that's what we did for the stream submissions at the moment. However, I think someone else had posted something really quickly. Yeah. So we'll do 2 more because someone just posted something in last minute. And you know, I don't want to leave too many people out. I won't show all of them. I'll save 2 of them for this person because I know they're viewing right now for the following stream, so that they have more to showcase. I don't showcase all of their stuff. I know Hoshi had mentioned earlier to showcase something else he was working on, so I will find that as well, because I know that I don't think it's done yet, but I found it. So we make it work around here. Rusty's in the house. How's it going? How's it going? There it is. This is a redesign for Hoshi's Space Godzilla. Of course, it's not finished yet, but from what I do make out, I like the spines right here. I think that overall, like, you made them a lot bulkier, which is nice. I think the head, interestingly enough, the head feels more traditionally Godzilla compared to what it was originally, but I like it. Of course, like, you're a big shonen and anime fan, so with these details right here, like this shape, immediately makes me think like Frieza Force battle armor. But of course, it's not like a one-to-one. That's the first thing that kind of comes to my mind. I love right here the arm blades are shooting out. Like, I love arm blades on my dinosaur kaiju. I'm thinking about maybe adding them to one of them. I technically do that with Zogra, but it's more like just spines along the arms rather than just arm blades. But like, I'm a sucker for that design detail. Every single time I did for my Gamma Ray design, and I was happy I was able to do that there. And now this was Kairu's work. So there was this iris right here. And interestingly enough, I like what you did here as I was kind of closing. Like, I could imagine this opening up to reveal something underneath, like probably like the little core bit that Iris has naturally in the suit. But you did a really good job here with this. Like, it all aligns one, and I could see this functioning and like spreading out. So good job on that. And then showcasing off here is another thing that you did, which was Guardian Beast Gamma, which you got a little gear on, and you got your Gam. So good job on that as well. And I know you did post some Gamma stuff as well. I do not want to post it just because you showed me 4, and I will hold off so we can show more of your stuff next stream. But thank you as well. So again, guys, if you want to, you don't be afraid to send me art, even if it's not kaiju related. I just want to keep fostering the community. And hey, I appreciate more people coming in and talking about things that aren't necessarily kaiju related. Kaiju is the big thing we talk about on the channel, but we can do other stuff. Like, I want to host some more game nights. I know one of my friends recently ended up getting Halo and got an Xbox, so I might do some like Halo game nights. Well, I spread out to a few more games. We'll see what's going on with that. But yeah, just keep joining, supporting the channel, all that wonderful goodness. But with that abrupt stoppage right there, it is time to talk about Accented Cinema's video on the good and the bad of Godzilla -1. Now, at least when it comes to like that title, that's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not good either, because it's mostly just a nitpick of like one scene that he directly states outright he's incorrect on. So before we begin, I'm thinking too, there are a few books we are going to be referencing as we go through the stream. If you do have them, those are gonna primarily just be Godzilla the First 70 Years, the original Godzilla novel, so that's the one by Jeffrey Engels translating, so 54 and 55's novelization, and then Godzilla -1's novelization as well. So if you have those, you'll be able to follow along with some of the things I say. I may read out all the pages. If not, I will state what pages we are going to be going to for your own sake. But with that out of the way, let us get started about Godzilla -1 and the supposed good and the supposed bad. And let's see if an ad plays right away, guys. Oh, wow. There you go.
It's the third time we're covering a film from director Takashi Yamazaki, who previously directed Stand By Me Doraemon and Lupin.
And I literally just... I did it to myself! This is what happens when you're not a professional. You get sponsored by Cascade and Etsy. We'll keep our chins up in this, guys. We can get through this. But as always, we'll be doing YouTubers on speed, because I don't want to get copyright claims. Speaking of which, so you're probably wondering, it's Zimcast 110. What happened to Zimcast 109? Well, I don't know exactly what specific day occurred after, or like when the stream ended, or if it was like right when the stream ended, and that's why it took so long for it to process. But when I was uploading more videos, I saw that I had a strike, and I was like, oh, what's that for? I thought it was maybe for like one of the videos, like the Methuselah video or something like that. And it turns out it was a claim. It was a takedown claim for the stream. So like an hour and some of content was claimed as belonging to the original owner. Now, had this been a case where it was a typical like React Bro type of stream where I just reacted to it, said very little, and just played the video outright without adding too much commentary wise, I could understand that. I would understand that entirely. But if I was making content like that, maybe I'd still get mad. But the video is only like 22 minutes. It was over an hour of content that was covered and taken supposedly claimed as their own. So I filed my appeal. The appeal went through. This is after waiting a couple days for an email response, which I didn't get. And I was like the main thing for me was that I had no problem taking on the video if I was asked to, but the issue was the copyright strike. Like, I also wouldn't have minded had I not been monetized for it either. The monetization, although something I do care about, is not the big driving force for the live streams. The live streams are primarily there because I do like to get my thoughts and I like to interact with the chat. So had I not made like a couple bucks or like a couple cents off of a stream, it's not a problem to me. It's just the fact that it was a strike over something that was clearly transformative. So I await with bated breath to see kind of what the results are, those, because I think it said like 10 business days for the response, and I think that ends around Friday. So we'll get an update as to what's going on with that come this Friday. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we will see the return of Zimcast 109, but at the moment, it is still up on Facebook as well as Twitch, where I multi-stream too. Now, if anyone has a question that is not related to the two videos here, I would prefer and appreciate if it was a super chatted question. But if not, if it's related directly to what's going on in the video, I will try to answer them as best I can. So let us begin.
The third time we're covering a film from director Takashi Yamazaki, who previously directed Stand By Me Doraemon and Lupin the First. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. Anyway, this video is sponsored by Squarespace.
We are not doing it. Not the ad's not in
Yes,
yet.
Godzilla -1. Now that the hype has settled, I can finally talk about it with clear eyes. Don't worry, I don't dislike it like I did with Shin. In fact, -1 is up there as one of my favorites, all thanks to its well-written characters, including a vengeful, terrifying Godzilla. And that's what I want to talk.
I know we're stopping and it's only 43 minutes in, but like the idea that Godzilla in this film is explicitly more vengeful or more terrifying always just sits wrong with me. Godzilla's always been pretty vengeful for the most part, and that just has been a thing since 54. Of course, when it comes to people with their Godzilla knowledge, it usually extends to just the original, maybe the Raymond Burr version, maybe Godzilla's Revenge, probably Godzilla versus Megalon, maybe the Heisei films, like as like a sole entity rather than individual films. Godzilla 98, maybe Godzilla 2000, the MonsterVerse, and sometimes you'll get like a GMK or something thrown in there. But otherwise, like this -1, and I've been saying this like for the past couple of years now, -1 is very much in line with the original characterization of Godzilla 54 in so many ways. And my problem is that people tend to think otherwise, especially one Allosaurus who thinks that -1 is explicitly like sociopathic, which is just silly.
Talk about today my thoughts on the depiction of Godzilla, how it affects the story themes, and share with you my one nitpick. Yes, I still have a nitpick. I know I'm becoming that one asshole in the fandom, but hey, it's the job of critic. Sit back.
I think my problem with this too is that I often hate it when like big channels like this will talk like, oh yeah, I'm the one guy who does this, or I'm the one guy who does that. No, like everyone's got their nitpicks, everyone's got their discourse or their one specific thought about a film. You're not special in that. The reason why people will come at you is because your takes are just bad. Like your Shin Godzilla take was bad, and then your -1 take was also just extremely bad because they ignore just direct evidence in the film or context that is very clearly stated. To me, Godzilla doesn't really act that much different than compared to the previous villainous versions of Godzilla. Yeah, exactly. This Godzilla -1 does not act all that different. I think the only reason why Godzilla acts more different than what people usually assume is more due to the fact that Yamazaki was able to do things on screen that previous directors weren't able to. And as a result, that's why we get to see Godzilla be more overtly aggressive towards humans. Like the Odo Island Godzilla attack is done in a way specifically so that Godzilla isn't eating people, but he's still shown to be aggressive. And that's why you have him stomping, killing, and like throwing these people around rather than just chomping down on them. even if that would be technically easier. But the cool thing about these kinds of creative restraints is that you were able to express character in a new way because you were working around the stipulations and limitations that come with working with a specific character.
Back and enjoy. This is the good and the bad of Godzilla Minus One. Set at the end of World War II, Godzilla Minus One follows Koichi, a kamikaze pilot who ran away from his mission. Instead of sacrificing his life for his country, Koichi flies to an island outpost where he meets Tachibana, head of the mechanics team. Tachibana condemns Koichi's cowardice, hinting at one of the core themes of the movie.
So that's a explicit just misread of that scene. He does not condemn Koichi at all for shirking his duty. He actually does not talk him down in front of his men. Instead, he implies it implicitly. He's like wondering like what's going on and why is there no engine trouble when you stated there was. And instead of like chasing after him or berating him or like having his men not talk to someone who'd be a traitor, he instead allows one of his men to like be honest about his feelings regarding the war and doesn't try to push him out. Like when Godzilla attacks in this scene here, he asks Koichi for help. It doesn't like hold the fact that he shirked his duty over his head to do this. Like the only reason why Tachibana orders it's like Koichi to make the move is because he is the trained fighter pilot there versus the mechanics who aren't. And now this is where I'm going to go into the novelization. Now, there is small differences between the novelization and the film, but because Yamazaki wrote both, his ideas and at least the sentiment should be shared between these two more than like a novelization of a film written by someone who didn't really write the original screenplay at all, or vice versa. So we're going to be going to pages 17 and 18. And you're going to be starting at the bottom of 17 right here. So when at sundown, Koichi returned from the beach. Tachibana was waiting. He gestured with his chin for Koichi to follow him into the command post. Koichi feared the worst. Was he going to be subjected to a trial by kangaroo court? He could feel his breathing start to quicken. He knew abandoning his mission as a suicide bomber was a felony offense, but with little other choice, he followed Tachibana into the command post. What awaited him inside the building was a far cry from what he expected. However, as he was greeted with eager smiles by the group of maintenance workers all huddled up around a large pot of what looked like fish stew, all of them beckoned him to join them at the table for dinner. Frazzled and confused, he tentatively took a step, and the room quickly erupted with conversation as the men each addressed him in turn. You know, I was wondering when someone like you might show up, said one. Man, kamikaze desertion, though. That takes some stones, said another. I mean, the war's as good as over, yeah, said another. I mean, the war's as good as over, said a third. Only an idiot would obey a suicide order at this point. Yeah, you can just keep your head low here with us for a while, then take a free cruise back to the mainland with us once things die down a little bit. So, like, I could keep going all the way into the end of page 18, but it's very clear that no, Tachibana never condemns Koichi for his cowardice, and just his sternness cannot be read as condemnation at all. Like, that's, I think, just a complete and total misread. What was his Shin take, just for a refresher? Essentially, his argument was that Shin Godzilla doesn't show enough civilian casualties, therefore it puts them in very low regard, while the film glorifies politicians. Essentially, that's his take. And what is interesting to note is that since that video came out, there have been deleted scenes that show they wanted to show civilian casualties, which kind of weakens his point further, but that's to be expected with channels like this.
That night, Godzilla approaches. We are treated to one of the best scenes in Godzilla history. Oh, despite its modest budget, critics agree the film's VFX blew Hollywood away, but few can explain why. It certainly isn't the realism. The effects look great, sure, but realism alone does not make it stand above others. What makes the VFX special, in my opinion, is the narrative intention behind it. As the saying goes, it makes you want to believe.
So I'd say this is actually a pretty fair take, because there is a lot of hard work that fans have to do, especially as Godzilla fans, to get people to immerse themselves in a Godzilla movie. The further we move away from suitmation and the higher fidelity things get, ultimately, you are going to have to do a lot more convincing to get someone immersed into these films because of that. So there's that hump that you need to get over. But when a film, despite its budget, does things so well, especially from a writing standpoint, you are then able to invest the person, the viewer, into the experience. And as a result, they will overlook those small little details that aren't exactly the best. One of the things that I can think of, at least with Godzilla Minus One, is it was pointed out to me that there are, in the scene where Godzilla kind of comes from the right side of the screen, and it's that shot with all the people running beneath him, you do see some of the running animations just sort of stop the further and like farther to the edge of the screen they get. And is that a flaw? Yes, sure. But given what we do see and where our attention is supposed to be directed, small issues like that overall do not detract from the overall story as a whole or the scene as a whole. Like, it's not a situation like I always want to bring up The Last Jedi, where you have the Praetorian guard fighting Rey, and he's holding a knife in one of his hands that would easily be able to stab Rey with, and then cut to the next shot, and the knife is gone. That has major implications, whereas a faulty running animation towards the end of a shot as it pans up to what is most important is a far smaller concern to me than something else that can completely derail and change the situation that is occurring on screen. His take on civilians is based, though, for sure. No, it's not. That's it. Again, as always, guys, comment 05L. Comment 05L as always. Comment 05L in the chat, guys. It's not based. The court finds you in favor of cringe. Bad take, as usual.
See, traditionally, Godzilla acts like a natural disaster. In Destroya, his rampage for Hong Kong isn't much of a rampage. He brings destruction by walking through it. Everything destroyed is collateral.
So, like, everything is collateral. Of course, I gotta look up the word rampage. It brings it to the movie, or rampage. Rush around in a violent and uncontrollable manner, a period of violent and uncontrollable behavior, typically involving a large group of people. So, at least with these two definitions, it's a rush around in a violent and uncontrollable manner. So, let's go back. Let's go back to Destroya right there.
Makes you want to believe. See, traditionally, Godzilla acts like a natural disaster. In Destroya, his rampage for Hong Kong isn't much of a rampage. He brings destruction by walking through it. Everything destroyed is collateral.
Except for whatever he would have been smashing through right there. And given the fact that Godzilla is burning up and his temperature is outside of his control, that by all intents and purposes would be considered a rampage. So yeah, that's just a rampage. And there is nowhere to like definitionally could we say that a rampage would not have collateral damage. If anything, collateral damage is to be expected in a rampage because just more destruction follows because of the destruction already inflicted.
In Shin Godzilla, he lashes out at everything like a typhoon with no specific targets in mind.
And that's just outright wrong right there, because
in Shin Godzilla, he lashes out at everything like a typhoon with no specific targets in mind.
This is the shot that we see right when he's shooting up to hit the B-2 stealth bomber. So he lashes out at everything with like a typhoon with no specific targets in mind. Show shot of him attacking planes, no specific targets in mind. That's it's small details like that. And I'm also nitpicky about that with my own content. Like, it's always important to make sure that your visuals match what it is that you're saying on screen.
Outside of combat situations, be it facing the military or another kaiju, Godzilla rarely acknowledges his surroundings. But the -1 incarnation...
Well, why would he need to do that? Because being the fact that he's a kaiju, he does not need to like often exploit a tactical advantage. And because he's not usually like an out-and-out traditional hero, it's not like he has to go out of his way to save people. Like, if we're talking about ignoring his surroundings, like, we have Ghidorah the three-headed monster, where Godzilla is using the environment to his advantage, using like the boulders and stuff to hit King Ghidorah. Same thing in Invasion of Astro Monster, where you actually see him diving for cover. Same thing in Emperor Horror of the Deep. You don't really see it, however, in Son of Godzilla, although we could argue that in teaching Manila how to use his atomic breath. That is him understanding and being aware of his surroundings. Same thing would apply for destroy all monsters. Like there's so many instances where Godzilla does acknowledge the environment around him. Like this statement is so vague. What does he mean by this? Does he mean that because he doesn't care about humans, he's not aware of his surroundings, or when he runs into something and destroys it, he's not aware of what it is he's actually doing? Like we can also actually consider the fact that in 54 he acknowledges the tower, the clock tower, acknowledges the radio tower. Not really as much in Godzilla 55 as much. King Kong versus Godzilla, he's aware of the towers that are electrifying, although you could say that's because of the stimulus, because of the shock, so that doesn't really count if, again, to steelman his position. But again, acknowledges his surroundings in a lot of the Showa era movies. Same thing for the Heisei films as well, considering the fact that he is either just directly pushing through things or throwing things about. Like we see in Godzilla 84 him pick up that train before tossing it, or dropping the building on the Super Rex, even if it probably been more efficient for him to just use his atomic breath more to destroy it. But no, instead he uses his environment to do certain things. Same thing for the Millennium Era. This idea of Godzilla doesn't acknowledge his surroundings is just countered by watching these films and seeing how often Godzilla has these interesting interactions with buildings, with nature, or with people.
Our nation is different. Facing an encroaching monster, Tachibana orders Koichi to open fire with his aircraft machine gun. As the audience, we all know this is an ineffective suicide attack. It mirrors the kamikaze situation. Tachibana mirrors the mindset of the Japanese military, and Koichi represents the expendable soldiers. Let's keep.
Well, kind of. It's not exactly a good one-to-one.
As the audience, we all know this is an ineffective suicide attack. It mirrors.
We know it's an effective suicidal attack because it's Godzilla. I don't think that we could then argue that therefore it is a suicidal attack. Even if an animal is large as Godzilla is, there is nothing that a normal person would believe and wholeheartedly think that a giant gun on a plane is not going to be able to just kill an animal. Like even the largest animals on the planet are still immune to conventional weapons. Like whales are still immune to missiles, bombs, things like that. Like just the idea that, oh, we see an aggressive big animal, therefore if I tell someone to shoot it with gun, therefore it is not going to do anything, is silly. I think it does mirror the idea of a suicidal attack, but just the idea that it effectively is, I think undermines Tachibana's character and the situation he's put in.
Mirrors the kamikaze situation. Tachibana mirrors the mindset of the Japanese military, and Koichi represents the expendable soldiers. Let's keep that in mind for later. Sitting inside a cockpit, Koichi hesitates, paralyzed by fear. Then Godzilla looks at him. He perceives this world. That single glance tells us Godzilla is a thinking creature. We start to wonder, what is he going to do? And the answer is terrifying. He starts killing people.
Well, yeah, after they shot at him. But this isn't really all that different from what we've seen in Godzilla before. So, page 88 for the original 54 novel, Godzilla is overtly attacking specific structures. Although it's not as clear in the movie, page 44 is when he tries to specifically swipe at Emiko. Page 121 is when he tries to kill Tsukioka and Kobayashi. Another page, again, 44, outside of the fact that it's very different from the book, that's when you have Godzilla kind of holding that person in his hands, which, again, difference between the book and the film, but still, Godzilla has always perceived the world around him. The idea that he hasn't, and this is specifically unique to -1, doesn't the other films a discredit. I forgot that this was happening. Yeah, well, you and me both. The act of destroying cities specifically while leaving natural environments untouched shows Godzilla's capability of acknowledging his environments. Yeah, that also makes sense. Even something as small as a bear is very resistant to bullets. It's very resistant to bullets, but that's also going to depend on what kind of caliber of bullets that you're using. Like, if you're pulling like 250 BMGs against a bear, even if like you're going to shoot it in the worst possible spot, you're still going to be able to put down that bear. Like the reason why in hunting, you go for precise shots is so that you don't ruin either the animal itself because you're trying to get a trophy, or because you don't want like the meat to be ruined. Like you don't want the bone getting lodged in the meat that way and ruining it, or all the insides and stuff leaking into the meat as well and that damaging it. So there's a reason why like you need to be precise with your shots against animals. But if you're just trying to kill something, then that is very different.
Not for collateral damage, but deliberate slaughter. It is the first time we see him with such a strong intention to cause harm. Later, during the
Again, just out and out wrong. Godzilla was overtly killing people since 1954. We see him do the same thing in Raids again. He outright kills just a random ship in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. By that point, Godzilla stops being more antagonistic and becomes more of a hero. In the Heisei series, we see him lifting up that train, throwing it around, dropping a building on the Super X. His interactions with Mikasagusa, the interaction with Katagiri in Godzilla 2000, him like looking down and acknowledging the humans when he looms over the cliffside in GMK, also trying to kill Yuri and Takeda. And that's also there as well. Him directly being told to forgive in Godzilla Final Wars, stopping his attack on Kiryu and deciding to attack not Akiba, what's his name? Hayama in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. There's so many instances where Godzilla just out and out has a thought in his mind to do something specific and has intentions. Like, this is just wrong. Kairi also added, thank you, Shindo in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or Gondo in Godzilla versus Biollante. This happens all the time.
The Ginza attack, the first thing Godzilla does is target a train. Again, it's not random destruction. He picks his target.
Wait, he picks up a train. You mean like in Godzilla 54 or Godzilla 84? And then we also see it mirrored in Godzilla versus Megaguirus, something that's just kind of a staple for Godzilla as a character to do. It's almost like Godzilla has always acknowledged his surroundings. You think Godzilla heard that, old man? He had cat ears, but not super hearing. I mean, like, considering the fact that he's just sort of standing there and not just killing them, I think the intention is that he is supposed to be, like, acknowledging, at least hearing what they have to say, even if he doesn't understand it. I meant bullets as in standard 9mm and whatnot. I don't know. I'm not that well versed in hunting. Well, so one, you're not gonna hunt like bear with a 9mm. You're not even gonna have like a 9mm for like defense against like 44 or 45 ACP. That like makes more sense for a bear. But no, you're not gonna go into bear country with a 9mm. You're not even really gonna hunt too much with like a 9mm, like a 22. That's more to what you're thinking of, or a 30-aught. Those things are more hunting related. Like 9mm is standard for police and the like. It's standard for like home defense, but not for hunting. No. Him interacting with Nick and acknowledging the different humans through his encounters with the military. I'm not including 98 because total Zilla death. Like no Zilla mentioning here.
Stop!
Yeah, no 98 here. I will allow Monsterverse. He acknowledges Ford in 2014, or acknowledging Mark in King of the Monsters. But again, this is the same guy who said that like Japanese Godzilla is about life, while American Godzilla is like silliness and all of that. So like Accent has just always had bad Godzilla takes. This is just another one of them. The thesis statement, he hasn't even really gotten to his thesis statement. He's just outlining the good so far. Like, I'll remember that. So thank you for reminding me about that, Black. When we actually get to the bad is when we'll get to his thesis statement. Just as the founding fathers intended.
There is effort behind his attack. He acts upon his malevolent intent, making his action personal.
Again, Godzilla, if we're going to say -1 has malevolent intent, so does Godzilla 54. Like, we'll go to the -1. Let's go around like page 64. So we'll give people some time to get to that spot, as well as myself. So that spot right there, page 64, is specifically in regards to Godzilla's mutation. So if we're to say Godzilla has malevolent intent, it is due to the fact that he has an understanding of the fact that he was mutated and scalded and completely destroyed due to the actions of humans. So it is vengeful, yes. Malevolent, sure. But like to say he minus is specifically malevolent undermines the fact that 54 was also pretty similar in that same regard. So in page 64 for the minus one novel, it literally says that he grew a hatred of humans or whoever it was that did this to him because of the pain that he was going through. And for the original novelizations, you're going to be going to page 36 if you have it. And we'll be starting like right in the middle. So it's right when they're dropping the flares on Godzilla. Godzilla seemed taken aback. He was still staring at the lights when the jets made another pass over his head. Roaring through the air, again, they dropped more flares, creating arcing lines that fell from above, illuminating the nighttime sky with sparkling light. Godzilla grew tremendously enraged. Perhaps the lights recalled the loathsome hydrogen bomb test he'd been through. He suddenly dove into the water and rushed towards the lights, using all his terrifying strength. And I'm also just not gonna go through every single page in the original novelizations where they say Godzilla had this crazed or enraged look in his eyes and things of that nature. Like Godzilla has always had a very aggressive and angry disposition towards humans. He says this like Godzilla never acted with malicious intent before. Again, the first film that Godzilla is considered a quote unquote hero is Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and he destroys a random boat filled with civilians. It wasn't even a military target that attacked him. Do you think people overlook Godzilla's evil intent in specific movies because the betrayal via suitmation hinders it despite the obvious destruction? I honestly am starting to think that yes. That is starting to become a theory of mine, that due to the fact that like the suits aren't always going to be the most emotive, some of the quote unquote emotion is lost. And as a result, people think, oh, well, he didn't actually think this. Whereas in minus one, you could see him roaring more, his like the expressions on his face change. But even then, with like minus Godzilla, his like facial structure doesn't engender too much like facial changes. It's mostly what you see in his eyes and his actions. And the same goes for like 54 all the way to the Millennium series. Yeah, I would say it got better, especially with the Heisei series, because you had more of the animatronics that allowed for more expressions from Godzilla, which is why I think oftentimes, aside from the stories themselves, people think that Heisei Godzilla was more emotive. But I think that's very clear given what you see Godzilla do on screen. So the visual action of a visual medium, Godzilla is acting with a specific kind of intent. But I think too, oftentimes viewers will then impart their ideas and like what they feel about the character from external material onto it, which is why you can have Godzilla in the original 54 movie flip over a bridge and people assume that because from external material Godzilla is like in pain and like mournful and sad and stuff, that also translates over to him just sort of acting out in like random sporadic actions rather than direct intent to do so. Because in the 54 novel, he overtly does that out of his own intent rather than him just randomly moving around. Like Godzilla has never been mindless. And I think that that's due to the cultural osmosis that's come from the caricature idea that the general humanity has of the Godzilla character rather than actually watching the films and coming to a conclusion. Got GMK has a lot of expressions. That is also true. I think depending on the level of animatronic work, the CGI does offer more motivation to show through. That's not to say you can't do it in summation since it has been done before. Yeah, that's also true. To be honest, this is why I love the Heisei Showa Millennium, Showa, and Final Wars, because Godzilla stars as an evil being but becomes an anti-hero. Fair enough. GMK is arguably acknowledged most in terms of the suits, considering the expensiveness of that suit. Yeah, well, I'd say like the suit was expensive. It's also just a bigger suit too, so there's that. But yeah, like Godzilla's always been emotive. Godzilla's always had intent. And oftentimes, if Godzilla is the antagonist, he has malevolent intent.
That sense of intent gives him a personality, and every move provokes an emotional reaction from us. We keep guessing his motives, and in doing so, we see him as alive. Think about it.
No, we don't guess his motives. We have a pretty like Godzilla is one of those characters, especially if you're doing something that's close to like the original character. You have a pretty good idea as to what his like motives are for doing what he does.
The often cited best CGI always comes from characters, be it T-1000 from Terminator 2 or Caesar from Planet of the Apes.
But like here, like that's not followed. What he just said before didn't follow up on what comes afterwards, because he says we keep guessing his motives, and in doing so, we see him as alive. But then says the best CGI always comes from characters. Like
Characters.
Here in the Two Towers, we know exactly what Gollum's like trying to do. We're not guessing his motives. We have a pretty good idea as to what his motives are. We may not necessarily know what he will do next, but his motives are pretty clear.
We see him as alive. Think about it.
We have a pretty good idea as to what the T-Rex is thinking of here. I would say this is probably closer to Godzilla, because at least in his case, or her case, the T-Rex like roars, so we don't know whether it's to like establish dominance, signal to another mate, something like that. But as the scene unfolds, we can assume that it is a curious animal, which is why it decides to then target the Jeep there with all the movement. Same thing with the T-1000. We have a pretty good idea as to what its motive is.
Or Caesar from Planet of the Apes.
And then right here, we know exactly what he is thinking of here, because he just says it.
No! -1 achieves the same effect. There's never a moment where Godzilla just exists. Every time he appears, it's either oh shit, or
yeah, there's always a moment. Like there's never really a moment in a Godzilla film where Godzilla just exists, because there's always a purpose behind the shots, whether the intent behind that shot is purposefully conveyed to the audience is a different matter. Godzilla is always existing for a reason in these films, so I don't know what to make of this either.
It's never a moment where Godzilla just exists.
It would be easier too to just be like to explain like what's going on in the shot. Like overall, if he provided like an example of a Godzilla film where Godzilla kind of just exists, then maybe we could do a compare and contrast. But otherwise, I don't know what he is talking about when he says this. Since he is Chinese, there's a reason he's picking on Japanese property film on being pro-Japan and its citizens in 1940s is because of his bias, or I guess you mean his bias on Japan's actions on China during World War II. We'll get to that. I think I'll talk about that more in his second video, but I think we'll cover a little bit here, and that also is going to go into the thesis statement that Black had mentioned.
Every time he appears, it's either oh shit, or we become too caught up with Godzilla's character to scrutinize his appearance. And as we dig deeper into the story,
that's what do you mean scrutinize his appearance? That's never. What are you talking about? What? Just.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Like, what do you mean scrutinize his? What?
We become too caught up with Godzilla's character to scrutinize his appearance. And
what would you be doing to scrutinize Godzilla's appearance? I don't understand. I just don't.
As we dig deeper into the story, we'll see why giving Godzilla intent is so important.
Yeah, this is the sponsor, so we'll just skip it. Although I do like that shot right there with like HD. I love Godzilla versus Biollante. Well, there we go.
As the sun rises, only Koichi and Tachibana remain. The rest of the mechanics are dead, all because Koichi couldn't pull the trigger. At least that's what Tachibana believes, and deep down, so does Koichi. The war ends, and the story truly begins. Koichi returns to the ruins of Tokyo, racked with survivor's guilt. Together with Noriko, whose parents died in the bombings, and Akiko, an orphaned baby, Koichi finds himself a makeshift family. Starting from zero, Koichi gradually rebuilds a life, as Tokyo rebuilds around him. Despite the haunting nightmares every night, for a moment, happiness is within reach. But at every corner, Koichi pushes that happiness away. Haunted by survivor's guilt, Koichi becomes self-destructive.
So far, I like, honestly, there's very little to say. so far everything you said like is just sort of recapping the film. So if anyone's wondering why it's taking me so long to actually provide a response, there really isn't, because again, it's all just recap.
俺は本当は生きてちゃいけない人間なんです。
And so, whatever he builds, he destroys.
そういうのはいいんだよ。
Meanwhile, Japan is also healing.
知ってます？銀座もどんどん復興してるんですよ。
Koichi builds his family, then topples it out of guilt. Japan rebuilds Ginza, and Godzilla burns it to the ground. This is why the aforementioned character animation is so important. Godzilla's attack mirrors Koichi's psyche, which reflects the social mindset of post-war Japan. When we look at Godzilla, we're peering into the self-destructive side of Koichi. That also means
we're not. So we'll go back just a tad bit. So
that's why the aforementioned character animation is so important.
So if the aforementioned character animation is important, then what is there to say about how Godzilla moves very fluidly and like an animal and then transitions into the more stilted walking we see after his mutation? Like, does that mean something? Because we know what it means. Yamazaki stated that he wanted Godzilla to move less naturally because the bombings had turned Godzilla from just an animal into something closer to a god in the paganistic sort of sense. And as a result, that's why Godzilla moves differently. However, to give him credit, I could see an argument for why Godzilla and Koichi are mirroring each other, because like how Koichi similarly kind of tanks the relationship he has in those last couple of minutes, which he doesn't really. Godzilla 2 comes in and like stops everything because of like things are getting in Godzilla's way. I guess you could say like, oh, Godzilla seeks revenge, but it's better not to take vengeance, guys. But overall, I think that trying to mirror the two, even if it is possible, undermines the theme around Godzilla itself and the ideas that Yamazaki was trying to present. I'd like point to like 412 of the 70 Years book to explain that in more detail. So if anyone does have that, we can pull to that page there. I also say I love the fact that every time I go into my store, I just see the book there. It's definitely something now to see so much Godzilla stuff just regularly in stores, especially stores you wouldn't think of to have Godzilla content in them. So real quick, Goji93 asks, what is this video about? I joined late and the title doesn't give me much on what's happening. Yeah, I wanted to keep it kind of vague. So it's mostly relating to the end of this video, which is his one nitpick with Godzilla -1. So far, he's just kind of praising it and giving his own analytical takes on the matter. Right now, he's just talking about how Godzilla and Koichi mirror each other. And I think that kind of undermines the theme of Godzilla and what he's supposed to be in -1. And as we get to page 112, which was like a Q&A they did with Yamazaki, and right there, I'm just going to give you two questions, and they're both of their answers. So the first question asked was, do you view Godzilla as an animal, a monster, a god? And he says, like, I see Godzilla as a tatarigami, or a curse god. This is a very Japanese concept. It is the idea of someone who was abused or hurt in the past, who then returns in a completely different form to exact revenge. So if Yamazaki views Godzilla in this manner, then Koichi really, unless we're going to say after Noriko's death, or supposed death, he becomes this similar kind of curse god to Godzilla, then I guess that's a comparison. But the people then try to calm that god down to settle the situation. In Japan, Godzilla is something like this. After making this film, I felt it was just like a ritual or calming this kind of god down. I believe that's one of the reasons why Godzilla films have been made all this time, for that ritual. And the next question is, why does Godzilla attack Japan? This is sort of like what author and philosopher Yuri Takeshi says. His writings inspired me. In a no play, there might be a ghost and it shows up and tells the audience why it is in such pain. The people listen, and when they finally understand, the ghost goes away. I think Godzilla is similar to that, but Godzilla's way of telling his story is through violence. He shows up, tells his story by destroying things, and when he's done, he moves on. When I started thinking this way, everything fell into place. So that's kind of at least what Yamazaki thinks when it comes to what Godzilla is, being sort of a vengeful, godlike creature or a vengeful spirit. And as a result, I don't think that necessarily mirrors Koichi. I think that similarly to Godzilla causing Koichi that kind of pain and making him vengeful towards the end of the film, you could make that comparison. But I don't really think he, like, every bit about Godzilla mirrors Koichi as much as I think Accent is trying to claim. Speaking of which, that reminds me, last year I went to my local mall with brother around this time, and we were both surprised with the amount of Godzilla merchandise we have found there. Exactly. It is very nice. Kind of like The Grudge, but kaiju, basically. Yeah, well, The Grudge is J-horror, so that concept in J-horror is like applied to Godzilla, which makes sense.
Godzilla's attack mirrors Koichi's psyche, which reflects the social mindset of post-war Japan. When we look at Godzilla, we are peering into the self-destructive side of Koichi. That also means the kaiju story and the human story are one of the same. It's why audiences said this is the first Godzilla film where they truly cared about people. When asked why he never married Noriko, Koichi's answer becomes the thesis of the film.
俺の戦争が終わってないんです。
And thus, the second half of the film follows Japan's fight to overcome Godzilla and to overcome its national trauma.
思えばこの国は命を粗末にしすぎてきました。
This is a common theme in Japanese media. In Rurouni Kenshin, Kenshin spends the rest of his life helping people to atone for his endless sins. He too is self-destructive, willing to throw away his life to help.
生きようとする意志、お前の命も一人の人間の命。
It's only through rediscovering the will to live can Japan rebuilds anew.
今度の戦いは死ぬための戦いじゃない。未来を生きるための戦いなんです。
Unfortunately, this is where the film fumbles. Here we go again.
Here we go. This is time, guys. Now it's time for his thesis.
The problem lies in the final showdown, where Koichi proposed a kamikaze attack on Godzilla.
爆弾を満載した戦闘機あいつの口の中に突っ込むんですよ。そうすれば確実に殺せる。
Seemingly moved by Koichi's courage, Tachibana decides to help him.
これを書いたこともアキコと言うんです。あいつの未来を守ってやりたい。
Also, Tachibana adds an ejection seat for him. And I was groaning in the theater. Let's start from the beginning. Koichi's survivor's guilt came from failing 2 suicide attacks. Once the actual plane attack, and the second time on the island. The rest of the film is his redemption arc. Koichi finds happiness, overcomes his cowardice, and triumphs against Godzilla. Meanwhile, Tachibana vanishes after Act 1, only to return unchanged, still furious that Koichi didn't die for his country, still blaming him for everyone's death. Then he learns Koichi's new plan. Apparently, his willingness to die is why Tachibana tells him to live.
Did I miss a page?
No, seriously, did I? Because it feels like some...
So this is building, like, his entire thesis statement is that Godzilla -1 fumbles at the end of the film because it is essentially glorifying the desire to suicidally fight to the death, which it doesn't. So we're going to be using mostly the -1 novelization to contextualize shots in the film. Tachibana never, like, orders the suicide attack from his perspective, and I think from almost anyone's perspective, if they would consider the fact that they are being attacked by an animal, they would without a doubt believe they'd be able to kill it with military grade firearms, regardless of how big it is. It's also interesting to note that Tachibana never ordered the men to start shooting at Godzilla. There is one guy who says to get the ammunition, but he never tells them to shoot. In fact, in the book, he explicitly says, "Don't shoot, you idiots." And that's page 24. So, like, the idea that that Tachibana is ordering a suicide attack and that, like, got his men killed because of that suicidal drive that's ingrained into him because of Japan's imperial ambitions or what other BS is just completely wrong. And we can also go to page 63 as well as 64. And this is a scene when they're, like, in the back and they're, like, working on the stuff, like working on the Shinden. So we can go to specifically, like, the middle of the page. And it's right when, like, Koichi's talking about, like, his will to live. He says, where Tachibana says, "Yeah, and so did all the men who died on the island that day," said Tachibana. "They all had families and loved ones they couldn't wait to see again, but they never got the chance because they got crushed like insects. And that's on you." And Koichi says, "I know." Koichi stiffened his expression and pulled out the oil paper bundle, which now contained not only the photos from the men on the island, but the portrait of Noriko and Akiko's drawing as well. You see this? It was drawn by a little girl named Akiko. I want to protect her future, and so I will stop Godzilla even if it costs me my life. Only after saying this did Koichi realizes his hands were no longer trembling. Looks like you finally found your resolve, said Tachibana. Now, let me tell you something very important. So, overall, in this scene, Tachibana has clearly, like, the aggression towards him is very different. Like, he knows about the plan, but the moment that he comes in and starts working on it and he's talking with Koichi's very shaky and stuff, and and is essentially close to freezing up, similar to what he did when he was in the original plane facing off against Godzilla on Odo Island. But it's only until he finds that resolve, not the desire to die, but the resolve to protect his family, which is mirrored by the Odo Islanders, does Tachibana say that you found your resolve, not the like, oh yeah, you're gonna die well or something like this. And then literally right afterwards, then when you cut to him showing off the ejector seat. So it has quite literally nothing at all to do with Tachibana seeing like Koichi's death drive to sacrifice himself for Imperial Japan or something like that.
Something's missing. Think about it. The film is overtly against throwing your life away. By that logic, Tachibana, who ordered an ineffective suicide attack, should be the one who needs a redemption arc.
Again, he never ordered a suicide attack. He's asking someone who's in a pretty understandable situation to do something, not realizing the actual gravity of the situation involved. And then when other people are shooting, he literally tries to stop them from doing so. So it's just wrong at that point. I just want to make it clear for the viewers at home, the film has all that as well. We don't need a novelization to disprove what accent cinema is trying to say here. No, we do not. However, if someone say, oh, we don't see that in the film, then you need novelizations, because at that point, it is not like, oh, you didn't understand like this head bob or this implicit like look between the eyes. No, it is just spelled out for you. And that's why I believe novelizations should oftentimes be as accurate to the films as possible, because then it contextualizes what we see on screen and it can further help understand and reinforce the themes the film is trying to say. Like, that is why I hold to the novelizations for this reason.
But he never got one. Now, I don't know if Tachibana installed the seat or if it's always been there, but narratively, it would have been so much better if Koichi is the one to ask for it.
Well, no, we actually do know for a fact that he did not install the seat. It was actually always there. And I'm actually just going to pull up to that scene, to that right there. Seconds. That's going to be page 189. It says, just before Koichi had taken off, Tachibana had explained to him one other very important feature of Shinden, which none of the other planes he'd flown had ever come equipped with. It had to do with the plane's German-made ejection seat. When you pull that lever, Tachibana had said, you'll be launched out of the cockpit. Stunned, Koichi had looked up at Tachibana, unable to believe what he was hearing. Yet, for once, there was nothing but kindness in the other man's eyes. You need to live, he said, placing one hand on Koichi's shoulder. Koichi could feel the warmth in his grip. And again, contextualizing, we understand that in the film, Tachibana never blames Koichi for like shirking his duty when it came to being a kamikaze pilot. That's the first thing he gets wrong. That's compounded upon the fact that because he thinks he's condemning Koichi, that he's then sending Koichi on another suicide mission. So that's also wrong, because Tachibana would not have believed something like that would have been a suicide mission, given the nature of the fight that he was going into. In the novel, it's directly stated he tells them not to shoot with their small arms, which is why he sent Koichi out to use a literal airplane's like guns instead of like just the bullets that they already had. And then later on, it is only until Koichi finds the resolve, not because he wants to die, but because he understands the situation and how dire it is, does Tachibana realize that, yeah, Koichi's not going to shirk his duty at the last minute. He's actually going to go through with this. So therefore, he's going to do the right thing and tell Koichi to live and explain the ejector seat to him. Because he could have not, but he chooses to because he understands the value of life, because he always did from the beginning of the film, and his anger is misplaced. Or we can use the transcript for the film to prove this. Transcripts, well, with a transcript, all you get is just the lines. You're not really, most cases with a transcript, you will get like maybe things like, oh, laughing or describing a scene. But oftentimes transcripts aren't the best, and there aren't a lot of official transcripts. Like film scripts, if you're looking at like drafts that are closest to the final like version of the film, those work well as along with novelizations. So yeah, in that case, if you want better like context for a film scene, the closest to the final draft of a script as well as novelizations are always going to be your best bet, especially if both of those are as close to the end product as possible, so that you don't have to worry about additional scenes being moved around, or context like that. Like the good thing about the -1 novel is that it reads exactly the same as the film. Nothing really goes out of like place. But not everyone is going to read or know about the novelizations, and that they probably mainly gonna be focused on what was shown on screen. Yeah, and in that case, if you're gonna go entirely off of the what is shown on screen, then you should have the humility to understand that you're probably not going to understand the entire context of things, or you're just going to be outright wrong. And if person A and person B both go into a film and they see something, and one person interprets it one way and another person interprets it a different way, and person A, without even reading the novelization, is able to understand the point that person B doesn't, and then person B says something and person A disagrees, they can quibble about like, oh, well, this scene kind of meant this, or from what I saw on this portrayal, it meant that. Whereas person A can be like, this is the intent of the film. This is what I saw visually, externally. This is the intent behind the film. Therefore, there's more evidence supporting what my portrayal and what my thoughts are on this film versus your perspective on the film. And some people may say that's mean or like gatekeepy, but I don't really care at that point, because if you are trying to analyze something or give your critique of something, then using all available research material and keeping those in mind for consideration is way more important and has greater diligence than just saying, oh, I saw the film and here's my thoughts. If you have an idea of what a film's themes are, and there are references in the film that explicitly support that idea, then you'd be correct. Yeah.
An ejection seat. In this scenario, Koichi is brave but not willing to throw his life away. Tachibana refuses, still calling him a coward. Koichi replies, I have a daughter now. Tachibana says, the mechanics were my family and they all died because of you. Then Tachibana sees Koichi with Akiko and realizes she's an orphan he adopted. That's when it clicks for him. Life has value beyond duty. He changes, helps Koichi, both characters complete their character arcs. But because there's no such scene, the narrative becomes that of Koichi earning Tachibana's approval by expressing a willingness to die. What kind of...
No, that's literally not it. That's just a false read. Again, everything we said, it's a false read upon a false read upon a false read to then get to this point.
What lesson is that? The movie spends 2 hours criticizing the military's disregard for life, only to imply death is a path to redemption. I mean, I guess Tachibana does learn the lesson, that's why he tells Koichi to live. But this whole transformation happens off screen.
No, it doesn't. Because you're clearly talking about the scene where they're explaining this, and Tachibana talks about Koichi's resolve, so it's literally not off screen. So that's just wrong.
One of the moral of the story happens off screen.
That's just an outright lie.
You were this close to perfection. What in Godzilla's name was that? Of course, this doesn't affect my enjoyment of the film. Like I said, it was just a nitpick. Unlike Shin Godzilla, where a cohesive vision strengthened an unintentional message. And
I always think anytime someone says like an unintentional message, oftentimes it is always the worst take imaginable. And in Shin Godzilla's case is that like Shin Godzilla doesn't care about civilian casualties, even though that is part of the point of the film.
-1 merely has a small inconsistency that undermines a strong theme.
Nope, that's just you misreading.
Before we wrap this up, let's also address the film's political message. Whether you see Godzilla as a symbol of post-war guilt or a classic symbol of American nuclear power.
The classic symbol of American nuclear power. So we're going to go to the 54 novelization. It's going to be page 199, which is appropriate, guys. So you're going to be going all the way to the bottom. So the opening scene provides an informative example of how Honda and Murata modified Kayama's scenario to fit the screen. Film historians C. Rifle and Ed Godchevsky have noted that Honda rewrote the scene because he saw his monster not as an indictment of America, but as a symbol of a global threat. I will say that one more time. Honda rewrote the scene because he saw his monster not as an indictment of America, but a symbol of a global threat. Honda was worried that Kayama's G Project scenario was too overtly political, and he and Murata toned down Kayama's criticisms. If you want those criticisms that they're talking about, they'll be at the top of page 199. We can also go to page 200 as well. Let me find my place there for that. And they also mentioned with Honda being like, putting a real life accident into a fictional story with a monster would not be appropriate. Instead, it became a matter of the feeling I was trying to create as a director, namely an invisible fear. So, yeah, Honda did not see Godzilla as explicitly American. That's just out and out wrong. And every time I say that, every time, there you go. 0 days since Godzilla's America take, quite literally. And I also want to go to page 215 as well. Yeah. No doubt, Kayama felt that this kind of moral clarity, especially when it came to weapons of mass destruction, was necessary as Japan found itself trapped between nuclear superpowers during the Cold War. So again, Kayama was deeply afraid of the nuclear proliferation of America and the Soviet Union, and Japan's place being caught in the middle, not specifically American nuclear power. I don't want to just say that this is a wrong take. It is a lie. It is a lie that continues to be perpetuated by people like this. And it is oftentimes the same people who say, oh, yeah, but the fascism and all of that wonderfulness. So
The film's tone is the same. Japan is shown acting in self-defense. It makes no mention of the Japanese aggression in Asia.
Yeah, of course, it's not going to talk about the Japanese aggression in Asia because the film's not about that.
Or the reason it was at war with the US.
Exactly. Because the war is over. And it's not talking about the themes and the like and ideas regarding like the military officials and what their thoughts were on the matter. It is talking about the everyday soldier. And it is unfortunate for soldiers who are on those sides of the conflict because oftentimes either they have no other way like to get out of those situations or just trying to settle with like the life they have. Like Honda is a perfect example of this. Honda is staunchly anti-war, was literally a part of the Imperial Japanese military, and we can see like his thoughts on it that he recorded. It is very clear that this film is looking at the experiences of people like that, not the top military brass, not political officials, not things like that. However, what upset me more and kind of pissed me off was him kind of bringing up this quote, right? Well, not even a quote, it's a title of an article. And I had it originally, had it favorited and then I lost the favorite. So we're just going to start it up again. So one. As Godzilla -1 sparks debate in South Korea. So let me stop sharing just for a second and then we'll move over to the other one. Share screen. There we go. So we'll just read the article in full. Godzilla -1 sparks debate in South Korea over war crime glorification. Godzilla -1, the 70th anniversary film of the iconic Japanese monster, has stirred controversy in South Korea. The film features a post-World War II Japan where a massive Godzilla reminiscent of atomic bomb devastation is defeated by former kamikaze pilots. Meaning former kamikaze pilot, just one. Unless we're going to imply there were more people on those boats who were kamikaze pilots. While internationally recommended as a summer blockbuster in South Korea, it faces criticism for alleged glorifying kamikaze pilots. Despite its release in Japan last November in North America in December, the film was not shown in South Korea until its Netflix debut on June 1st. The film gained attention after winning the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, blah, 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 blah. The title -1 signifies Japan's reduction to zero by the war, facing even greater despair due to Godzilla. South Korean viewers are divided. Some criticize the film for depicting Japan, which suffered atomic bombings and lost the war, as defeating an atomic bomb-wielding Godzilla, interpreting it as a mental victory without reflection. Okay. The film's portrayal of Japan's dire post-war situation, Godzilla's radiation heat rays, which invoke atomic bomb imagery, reinforces criticism. Some also view the scene where protagonist Koichi Shikishima, a war survivor, crashes a bomb-laden plane into Godzilla's glorifying kamikaze pilots. Except Why would it be glorifying kamikaze pilots and then subvert the end goal of a kamikaze pilot, which is to die with honor and defeat a greater threat? If anything, it'd be seen as more dishonorable to try to get the win that you want and try to survive as well. Because if you survive and then you fail, you're shirking your duty there. And like the whole idea of like it being seen as a mental victory defeating Godzilla and like the atomic bombings and stuff like that. Like, yes, Japan was nuked. A lot of Japanese civilians suffered greatly because of nuclear bombs. That can also be true, and then also have a discussion about the use of atomic weapons and Japan's role in the war. Like, the film is not trying to cover all of these disparate topics. And the problem, every single time you cover these areas in history or these topics, especially in film and other forms of media, you cannot tell a cohesive story in like all likelihood. The problem is that you have to consider this aspect, that aspect, other things like that. That is a big problem I have, in that, like, oh, you need to talk about Japan's role in the war. No, it's not relevant to this historic of these specific peoples. Had we a character who is like glorifying the Imperial Japanese military or wanting to fight the US again, then yes, it would make sense to criticize the Japanese like role in the war in that context. They literally do that in Atragon. Toho was doing that in Atragon back in the 60s. Or how Captain's like, oh yeah, the information control is one of Japan's specialties, and he talks about hating the government. And even though he's like, I hate the government with a passion, but someone has to do it, it is showing a disregard for the people in charge, but a desire to protect the people that while you were in the military, you are sworn to protect. And it's interesting how people like this will so constantly berate the military, but have like literal, like almost minuscule levels of honor, respect, courage, integrity, things like that. We're just not being able to understand topics like that. It's so frustrating. But carrying on. Others argue that the Godzilla series, which began in the 1950s, carries an anti-war message. Godzilla, born from nuclear testing, symbolizes nuclear disaster and war terror. The film's theme is to overcome the fear and continue to survive. It also criticizes the Japanese government's disregard for soldiers' lives during the war, depicting civilians uniting to defeat Godzilla, suggesting it's not glorifying kamikaze, but showcasing survivors' recovery from war shadow. Internationally, the monster flick has received positive reviews following its Netflix release. It's been praised as one of the best Godzilla films and a summer blockbuster pick. The New York Times described it as depicting Japan's slow reconstruction and overcoming of physical and mental destruction caused by the atomic bomb. While The Guardian highlighted its exploration of post-war survivors' guilt, director Takashi Yamazaki faced similar criticisms for adapting a novel by Japanese right-wing author into the Eternals era. I think literally, it's you're not criticizing the military enough the way I like it, but the right-wing author and I'm just gonna skip over this because it's really just more talking about Yamazaki's other work, which interestingly enough brings up Eternal Zero and then Stand By Me Doraemon, which Accent also brought up. Just as Japan cannot make all post-war films a statement of repentance, South Korean viewers inevitably interpret films through a historical lens. Setting aside these controversies, the film receives praise for its dynamic and lifelike visual effects. The vividly depicted Godzilla with its rising horns, and hefty movements in the sea, yet comical short arms and bulging belly remains as compelling as the 70-year-old monster that once rivaled Western King Kong. So, like, yeah, if we're to say it is being criticized in other countries for X or Y reason, then therefore it is then also fair to criticize those people criticizing the film and what motives or reasons they may have towards criticizing the film in the manner in which they have. Like, it's general just hypocrisy, the way I see it.
International reactions range from disappointment to condemnation.
No, it doesn't. That article never said anything about like disappointment or condemnation. It was very tepid in its criticisms, but it also like is critical of South Korean viewers' like reactions to it. So overall, I feel like the only reason why he included this bit here is because if it adds to the thesis that he's making here at the end, rather than the actual content of the article itself, which feels dishonest to me.
It's all par for the course for director Takashi Yamazaki, whose previous anti-war films were either half-baked or controversial.
And again, I feel like this is cherry picking a point in order to feel like we can strengthen this message that he's shoehorning at the end a little bit harder. Yeah, no, literally. As well as, honestly, I would love to fact check some of what was said in Count Dankula's recent video on Hayao Miyazaki, but given everything I've heard about Hayao Miyazaki, I just do not care for anything the man has to say. Like, it is, if I knew how to say "okay, boomer" in Japanese, I would, because that is exactly my thoughts about Miyazaki and like things of this nature.
I suppose that's a topic for another time. I too
I hope you make that video, because that's something else I would love to respond to.
would prefer a stronger anti-war stance.
Of course. And I think I forget who it was, but yeah, given the fact that this accented is Chinese and the atrocities the Japanese committed on the Chinese, there's always gonna be that bias that there needs to be a stronger anti-war war stance, and more overtly talk about the horrors committed in places like Asia and the like. So yeah, I think that this entire bit here is at the end, because anytime a Japanese war film or specifically World War II film comes up and it doesn't specifically talk or mention those issues, the same people will always come out of the woodwork like maggots to say, oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, even if that is not related to the movie at all.
But given Japan's current political climate, -1.
And he literally just pulled, because Japan is a little right wing right now, that is why -1 is the way it is. That's stupid. That's just stupid.
Stop!
Just no. Stupid.
Is sadly about as much as I expect. Like many Japanese anti-war films, -1 makes amends to Japanese countrymen, and that is okay. But now that Godzilla is defeated and the trauma confronted, I hope Japan can find the courage to finally face its imperialist past. After all,
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Ready? Why? Why would it do that? Why would they talk about that if it's another Godzilla film? Like, unless we're gonna say the monster thematically is gonna be tied to that, sure. But no, I don't want -0 to have a giant long musical number where they talk about the horrors of Imperial Japan.
we all have our kaiju, and for many people, Japan is our Godzilla.
So if Japan is your Godzilla, does that mean that, like in -1 or other Godzilla films, that he should be destroyed, or is a literal wrathful evil entity that must be subdued? Because, like, if you're saying for others Japan is their Godzilla, then the implications that come out of that statement are mind-boggling, to say the least. Sheer curiosity, is there a Japanese film that goes over their atrocities in Southeast Asia? I'm not sure, but it might be something I'd have to look into, because I might want to do a video talking about this this topic as a whole. And there it is. I was wrong about Godzilla -1. So skip over to the next video. Nope, not what I wanted. There we go. Perfect. And we keep closed captionings. We'll do, 0.5.
Before we begin, please excuse the static image. Our previous video was copyright claimed and blocked by Toho for weeks. If I want to correct my mistakes in a timely manner, this is the only practical solution. So yeah, have you ever woken up and realized you messed up so badly that what you said was basically misinformation?
No, it just was misinformation, and you've continually displayed misinformation when it comes to the Godzilla franchise.
Look, I'm sorry. In our Godzilla -1 video, I made 3 claims. Number 1, Godzilla represents Koichi's self-destructive mindset born from survivor's guilt. This one is mostly fine. The scope is a little limited. Godzilla can also symbolize the US nuclear threat.
Again, it doesn't. You're wrong. There's so many examples where Godzilla does not specifically represent the US nuclear threat as a tired trope. It's bad. You're wrong. Honda never envisioned that to be the case. Stop it.
Among other things. But that's such a well-established motive, I didn't feel the need to kick that kaiju.
It's really funny when a video is like, I want to tackle the misinformation I posted, and then provides more misinformation.
So I didn't bring it up. Number 2, the VFX are elevated by sentient Godzilla. I still stand by this statement, but I have erroneously implied that this is the first sentient Godzilla. It is true that Godzilla began as a sentient monster who deliberately targets people. In my opinion, however, the OG film is one of a kind. Later in
in my opinion, the OG film was one of a kind. That's not an argument. That's essentially dismissing it as, I can't really argue with this point, so I'm just gonna say, it's special because it's the first one. Stop. Like 54 is an exceptional film, but 54 exceptionalism to disregard points made that allow films to either be less or more faithful is a stupid argument that needs to die. Yep. Minute 0 since Godzilla's Americanisms, indeed.
Incarnations from Japan show varying degrees of awareness, but never as explicitly or consistently as -1.
That's just outright wrong.
Commonly, Godzilla films are coded as disaster films, death or wrestling matches. In the rare instance where Godzilla attacks an individual rather than a whole city block, it is shocking, as if it breaks some rule.
Wait, so now we moved away from Godzilla targeting a specific individual when in -1 he doesn't attack a specific individual, he attacks a specific group of individuals, which, if that is the case, specific individuals would include Godzilla 55, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, also include 84 with the train, Gondo and Biollante. Could also include Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. I guess we could stretch it and say like Destroy Mogera in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, obviously shown here on screen. GMK, Godzilla 2000. Final Wars 2. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Yeah, there's many instances where Godzilla specifically targets people. And if we're to explicitly cut out films where Godzilla is the hero because there'd be no reason for him to target humans in those cases, that's a large majority of the franchise. Cough, cough, no. Total Zilla death.
Even then, this brief flash of sentient doesn't feel as personal as him chomping down on individual mechanics. Indeed, for a brief flash of sentient city block, it is shocking, as if it breaks some rule. Even then, this brief flash of sentient doesn't feel as personal as...
Okay, so this is in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, this would make it the second time that he's done this. He does this in 2 films back to back. And if we include 84, we see Godzilla in Godzilla 84 target a specific set of people, and then he kills a specific person in Godzilla vs. Biollante, and then does it again in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Technically breaks the mold in Mothra. Sort of see him targeting a specific area for a specific reason in Mechagodzilla 2. Kind of does in Space Godzilla. Doesn't really as much in Godzilla vs. Destroya. And then we see him target a specific individual in Godzilla 2000. So, yes. This is a dumb argument.
Chomping down on individual mechanics. Indeed, portions of -1 are coded as a horror film.
0 minutes since someone said something is coded.
He chases us through the wide ocean like Jaws, aiming not just to destroy, but to kill.
Chasing something down in the ocean like Jaws, like it was doing in 54, sinking ships, or like it does in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster when it kills that, like destroys that boat for no reason, or in Godzilla 84 when he sinks the Russian nuclear sub, or in Tokyo SOS when he does that. Like, there are so many times where Godzilla will specifically chase after boats. We just do not see it as it is portrayed here on screen.
It's no coincidence, as -1 was in part inspired by Jaws and OG Godzilla. Put ourselves in the perspective of the civilians, and the difference is between death by a nuke and death by a stab with a knife. The former is effortless and instant, the latter is persistent and targeted.
That's a terrible comparison.
By a stab with a knife. The former is effortless and...
That is a personal kill, and then the other is a personal kill as well. This is a stupid comparison.
And targeted. It is this personal feeling that bestows Godzilla its life and believability. But the real issue, and the reason this follow-up even exists, is statement number 3. In the video, I said the film stumbles at the end because Tachibana has a change of heart after learning about Koichi's kamikaze plan to kill Godzilla. I interpreted that as the film sending out the wrong lesson. Death is the path to redemption. Multiple viewers have pointed out that no, Koichi isn't bravely embracing death, he's surrendering to his trauma. He is doing what he believed he should have done, sacrificing his life so others may live. Tachibana's change of heart comes from seeing the face of real, pointless death. And that makes so much sense.
Wow, it makes so much sense. You mean it's actually just shown in the film and you were wrong the entire time because of your own implicit biases?
From here, Tachibana helps Koichi with motivations that remain hidden from us. The climax unfolds as Koichi hurls himself towards a seemingly self-destructive attempt at revenge. The truth is revealed in the final flashback, in which a changed Tachibana tells Koichi to live, completing Koichi's salvation. Everything.
I think also interesting to know is the fact that the biggest reason why Tachibana was upset with Koichi is because he was sending him letters telling him that it was his fault for for his mechanics getting killed. So like that's also another problem there with the film that the analysis he's giving for this film
falls into place perfectly. You know what the worst part of this is? I've been holding on to this misreading for 2 whole years.
again because of your own implicit biases,
No one ever corrected me.
because of your own echo chamber probably, and everyone is probably going to agree with you that if a film hints at glorifying Imperial Japan or kamikaze pilots, they're going to assume that that's the case, and then people like you perpetuate that instead of actually not thinking that's the case.
I don't know why I never saw the actual plot. Maybe it
Again, implicit biases.
hammered home the value of life so many times, I assumed Koichi had already learned it. It's no excuse, of course, just an explanation, and a sloppy one at that. Either way, I think that's my takeaway. Making mistakes isn't scary, being blind to them is. It's one thing to say that I'll do better in the future, and I will certainly try to, but what if I didn't even know I was wrong? For this follow-up, I was lucky to have fellow YouTuber OmniViewer to help fact-check my major arguments. Even then, I don't have the heart to put in through my smaller claims.
I mean, honestly, I would love to go through his smaller claims.
He, along with Nathan of the podcast Monster Island Film Vault and filmmaker Elijah Thomas, hosted a stream analyzing and correcting my video. I recommend giving the stream a watch. But this is the exception. Other than funding, I work alone most of the time. What other mistakes am I missing?
Like Godzilla being a symbol of American power. Yeah, the Omni-Man himself. I forgot. I think I wanted to do like a little Omni-Man bit here, but oh well.
It's a scary thought. I'm incredibly lucky to be put into a position of trust by many, yet a part of me finds it worrying. I didn't plan on being a person you can listen to. This brings us back to why I didn't bring up CGI realism or Godzilla's nuclear symbolism. They are too obvious. You already know them, and I don't want to repeat them. I want to be that guy at the party who starts a 3-hour debate over whether this scene has phallic symbolism.
I mean, you're the same guy who continually states that Godzilla is a symbol of American American nuclear power, so you kind of are that guy at the party already.
I want to bring something new to the conversation, and to do that, I have to venture into unmapped territory.
No, like this take right here is not even unmapped territory. This is the coldest take. Like we've already done several streams looking at people who may not have made videos, but have discussed this idea of, like this whole idea, like, oh, it's pro-fascism or it's pro-kamikaze. All of these points that he's raising have already been done to death. This isn't new territory at all.
That means I'll occasionally get lost and make mistakes like this. Still, if it means the rest of the time I can find new perspectives, then I think it's worth it. Because then I'm not listened to, we have something to talk about. So if it's alright with you, I'd like to keep exploring. I'll do my best not to trip again, but if I do, please pull me out on my own stumbles. Thank you for being here with me. I'll see you in our next video.
At least I'm happy that he acknowledged Omni, Elijah, and Nathan really, like, definitely took him to task on that, because otherwise it would have been interesting had he pushed back, but I don't know. The take was so wrong that had he stuck to his guns, that it probably would have been just like maybe not like a death nail for his channel, but it definitely would have lost him a little bit of clout YouTube wise. See, Animus even popped up there. I did not see Animus when he was showing those. I saw like the Will Monsters moment. I saw obviously the guys on stream. I think you probably talk about the chat. I literally just wasn't looking at the chat. Accident might have a fetish for phallic imagery. Hey, who knows? It's not me. But that is it for this stream, guys. It was fun. It's very nice, and I always like seeing it when like people in our sphere kind of cross over into the bigger YouTube space. And yeah, I guess I have more competition when it comes to Godzilla stream responses. I'm super happy that Omni, Nathan, and the guys were able to do this response. I'll definitely want to do mine later on, like as in terms of watching it. But overall, I think that if he is taking this to heart, then continuing to be like more critical of like his takes on Godzilla would be nice to see. Maybe we'll see another video about him talking when it comes to Godzilla and Godzilla related media, because it just means more content for me. That's all I'm saying. Have you seen his Rebirth of Mothra video? He did do a Rebirth of Mothra video. That's wonderful. We'll see what I can check real quick to see what it says, but Yeah, no, I must have missed that then. Cinema Rebirth of Mothra. Oh yeah, no, he did. Interesting. And that video is 3 years old. Hey, I'll definitely give it a watch and see what he has to say on the matter. The -1 nationalism people drive me up a wall. Yeah, no, literally. It never gets old. The battle never ends, but that's why I just love doing these responses and I love hearing what you guys have to say. But all in all, good stream. As always, you can find me almost anywhere. I multi-stream with Facebook and Twitch, but you can find like my backlogs on like Odyssey and BitChute. Most of my art I post between Instagram and DeviantArt. Patreon's where you can support me, and X is where you can see me arguing with people online. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to be doing another post on my Patreon for Kaiju Quarantine. I do have a subtitle for it now, so I'm happy to announce that. I have a few chapters that are in the making, and I'll be interested to see what some people's thoughts are regarding that. And on top of that, we still need to come up with a caption for this guy, for Chibi Zim, for Chibi Zogura. Post in the comments when this uploads, like your thoughts on a caption. Movie fan has been the big one I've been thinking of, but who? Doctor Who. Well, I might just do I might commission like a Doctor Who shirt as well. But keep coming with caption for these. Stay tuned for the Patreon stuff. I will post a link in the YouTube post for people to go check that out. And yeah, expect to see the Dinosaur Pit stream go up soon when I get the art ready for that. And I might do another stream beforehand as well. There is the one on the 18th, so I may not get it in. I may do the Dinosaur Pit stream and then do one more dinosaur stream, maybe on Christmas if I am able to. Maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for saying Doctor Who. And as always, guys,
Semper Fi, motherfucker!